this tape when I'm finished. If none of us make it, at least there'll be some kind of a record. The storm's been hitting us pretty hard now for 48 hours. We still have nothing to go on. One other thing. I think it rips through your clothes when it takes you over. We're all very tired. There's nothing else I can do. Just wait. R.J. McCready, helicopter pilot, U.S. Outpost North 31.
The Thing is a video game adaptation of the 1982 John Carpenter classic of the same name. It follows the story of Captain Blake, who was sent to investigate the camp after the events of the film. Atmosphere. The game starts off very strong, allowing you to explore the charred remains of the US base from the movie as a bit of fan service. The blizzard is still thick and the ominous alien spaceship is waiting below. But soon after, the game's atmosphere kind of dissipates. There's no soundtrack to speak of besides specific moments, and the silence isn't eerie because it's mostly filled with gunfire. Shooting and burning enemies is a large portion of the game. The environments are a bit generic and repetitive to explore anyway. There's no tension even when one of your teammates turns out to be infected. You just kill them and move on with the game. That's no Harry Mason.
Got the kid? Good. The report said the hypo contains a chemical that reacts with blood. Do it. We'll soon know, one way or another.
Now I'm gonna show you what I already know.
Area looks secure. Maybe you will get us out of this.
Scares. The game's biggest selling point is its biggest failure. Having AI squad mates that could potentially be alien clones sounds like a good idea on paper, but it's horribly executed, with most of the NPCs being so generic and disposable that it doesn't really matter who is a copy and who isn't. When one of them turns out to be a copy and transforms, it's cool the first time, but after that it happens so often that it's really nothing special. The game assigns them names and they all have similar voices and say the same lines over and over. Sometimes there's almost a sense of camaraderie with them when they get you through difficult sections, but many of them die in cutscenes or are slain by the massive number of aliens you encounter, and then 5 minutes later you get some more AI buddies. The alien designs are kinda cool, but it feels like they could have been a bit more varied in design. There's a raw, nasty look to the texture work on them, but the AI makes them run around in a blind panic and they don't seem to be a huge threat. There's plenty of random jump scares with smaller creatures bursting out of vents or climbing in through the windows, and scripted events where things just blow up for no reason to scare the player. The boss battles go on for way too long considering the amount of damage you deal, and it feels like the health bar is almost useless since it takes only a few shots to put an enemy into the red, and then another 40 shots and multiple attempts at burning it to put it down. Whilst there's some decent stuff here, it doesn't deliver on the one thing most people would play the game for. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. The music only comes in when something happens, and as quickly it goes. It's a real disappointment. If the thudding synth of the John Carpenter soundtrack had been prominent in certain areas, it could have certainly enhanced the atmosphere. The sound effects of the guns are very generic, but pretty satisfying. As mentioned earlier, the AI companions talk a lot and often reveal where there's an enemy before you even see them. They tell you all the time when they're upset or scared or want a gun, and many times it just made me wish I was doing the section on my own. The enemies scream and make similar noises to the ones in the film, but not the howling bellows from the more iconic scenes, which is a missed opportunity to instill dread. That's still no Harry Masons. Gore. Blood sprays all over the place and dead enemies lie in pools of blood that slowly sink into the ground as they dissolve. It's pretty cool. It's bright red and stands out a lot too. Lots of rooms are plastered in grisly red matter and ripped apart bodies that just look gnarly thanks to the graphics. Also, setting enemies on fire is incredibly cool and satisfying. That's one Harry Mason. Story. The game picks up where the movie left off and has you exploring the remains of the base and finding out what happened. There's no sign of McCready or Childs, but the alien menace certainly did not perish in the cold. After the opening, the game's story declines into doing basic military-style missions and chasing dead ends. The game has a lot of cliché moments that aren't very impactful, killing off characters 5 minutes after meeting them, and making the bad guy so unambiguously the bad guy that it's kind of ridiculous. There's loads of jarring moments, like this point where my 2 comrades were slain in an explosion as I boarded an elevator, and then after a loading screen I'm dumped out into the Arctic snow with no clue of how I got there. Characters come and go so quickly that there's no surprise when people turn out to be copies, and even when they aren't copies, they die anyway. Making the final score 1 out of 5 Harry Masons. This game had such a good premise. The idea of AI companions that follow you through the game that could turn out to be copies would have been fantastic. In my head I imagined something like Until Dawn with characters you grew to like and had unique personalities, but what I got instead is a gory run-and-gun game set on an Arctic base with characters who are killed off as quickly as you meet them. Don't get me wrong though, this game is extremely fun. I'd still recommend this if you like shooting games, but it's not a good horror game. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games. If you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I was almost in tears of laughter at the odd behaviour of the AI, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.